Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome to the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and today's guest is a woman who's made a massive impact on me personally. Wokie Nwabueze believes that when you own the power of your voice, you own the power to change the things that really matter. And she's certainly made that really possible for me. Wokie is the founder of the Courage to be Seen and Heard community and of Women Prepared to Lead. Her passion and expertise is teaching women how to speak without fear, to embrace their visibility, and to develop the communication skills, the confidence, and the presence that's really necessary to succeed in business and in life. I can't wait to share her story with you today. Welcome to the show, Wokie.
Hi, Casey. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I miss our late night phone calls. So it's so nice to talk to you.
It is amazing. And you, as I said, have made a massive impact in me and my business. So I really want to share with you and share with my listeners your story specifically. So I'd love to kind of dive in initially, Wokie, for you to, we've shared a little bit about what you do, but if you could give a brief overview of kind of where your story and where you started and how you've got to where you are.
Yeah. So my story really has two parts. There's the professional story, and then there's the personal story that merge together eventually. But, I'll start with the professional. I mean, for the past 22 years, have been helping people become better communicators and more comfortable interacting with people and being seen. I started working with a nonprofit back in the early mid-90s, developing programs to help people use communication as a means to solve problems over anything else. And that was amazing. I fell in love with the work, and I started to learn about people and what they do in certain situations, especially when there's conflict or hardship or risk. And so after doing that for a few years, I practiced law for several years. In my first year out of law school, I was a domestic violence litigator. And working with women who were the victims of violence was very eye-opening for me. And I started to just feel a passion developing in me for women's issues, for women's voices, and for women really taking a stand for themselves. And that is something that's been kind of burning in the background for a long time. And, at that point, I went on and did similar work in corporations and helped build these programs for people to just become better communicators. Now, at the same time, in my personal life, I was extremely shy as a child. My mom actually this weekend was telling me that, my teachers used to be concerned that I never spoke. I mean, I never spoke in class, and they knew that I was intelligent and that I knew what was going on, but I was just so afraid to speak up. And I was shy through my childhood. I was shy through my teenage years and my early adulthood. And so many people that know me don't believe that. They're like, you didn't seem shy. And I'm like, I was, but I could muster up the courage in the right circumstances to pretend I wasn't, and that's how I lived a lot of my life. And as I got older, and especially when I became a mother, I started to really to understand that the work of becoming visible and the work of being heard is not about, or it's not only about skills and tactics and frameworks and approaches, because that's what I was an expert at. But still, for me, I felt like as I was speaking and doing different things, I didn't feel centered in myself all the time. I hesitated a lot. I felt fear. I overthought things before I did anything or after I did anything. And so I started to look a lot deeper and to try to really understand, what does it take to transform somebody's relationship to their voice and somebody's relationship to being seen in their life, in whatever realm of their life they need to be seen and heard in. And so that's when the rigorous work started, of going much deeper and looking at different areas of study and methodologies, and bringing in my gifts, that were, the intangible gifts and, intuition and empathy and all of those feminine characteristics and energies into my work to really understand, like, what does it look like when somebody overcomes shyness and overcomes being quiet? And I was my test case. I mean, I really said, you work on yourself, start there, and started to test my ideas in the real world and test them on myself and to push myself to the point of truly transforming my own relationship to my voice. And I'm no longer shy. I consider myself recovered. I'm a recovered shy girl. Because, shyness is ultimately, it's a behavior, it is something that we learn to do, in a way we learn to act, and it becomes a worldview. It's a thing that we see everything through, and it's that fear of judgment, of rejection, of what people think. And when you can transform that, it's so freeing that, I love seeing what happens for a woman when she wakes up one day and says, I don't care about that anymore. I'm just going to go out in the world and do what I want to do. And what's so beautiful to me about working with women is that they go out in the world and they do what they want to do, but they bring with them, and especially quiet women and shy women, they bring with them compassion and empathy and passion wrapped up into this amazing package. And so I love this work. I love what you're doing. I love when a person who is quieted finds their voice and goes out in the world to do anything. I mean, whether it's raise their child, feeling more self-assured, or keep their relationship healthy, or building a 7-figure business, whatever it is that she wants to do, the possibility of touching that story and freeing her from quietness, to me, it's good stuff. That's what I love.
Well, I get goosebumps every time. I love it. That's what we all about.
I know. I feel like I have this mission and I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
That's incredible, Wokie. So after you did your stint and you started working on yourself, which I have to say is just massively courageous in itself, but you really are your own test case. And as you say, you've lived the journey, so you really can help women who are on that journey. So can you take us into, so you what happened after you finished in your corporate? You started your own business, right?
Right.
Coaching women like that.
Yeah. So I started, it's funny. I guess I'm not as much of a planner as I would like to think that I am. But, as we were discussing earlier, my business has really evolved. I've followed the tide, where it's taken me. And my feeling is that I would rather kind of call in what's supposed to be there than chase something if I'm not sure if it's, if it's the thing that I really want. And so when I started my practice and my, doing my coaching work, I put myself out there. And there's a type of woman that was drawn to me, and I noticed that. And then I said, what is it about me that's drawing this woman to me? And what is it about her that makes me so happy to work with her? And then I figured out over time who my perfect client is, and started following that trail and just, building and building and building on that. And really took the position that if I make myself available and if I'm clear in my intention to serve this group of women in this certain way, that the right women will come to me. And that's what's happened. Now, in the background, you're always kind of building your business and the structure and the planning. But really, it's been following inspiration and noticing what doors open and then going through the ones that felt right.
Fantastic. So what does entrepreneurship and you working for yourself and being an entrepreneur, and specifically a woman entrepreneur, mean to you now, Wokie?
It means so many things. And not all of them feel great all the time, honestly. But I mean, the good of it is that, you know, I do feel like I have a calling. I feel like all of the work that I've done has really been following the path of what I felt like I was meant to be doing. And that's what feels easier, what feels truer, you know, like what comes without a lot of effort. And I mean, effort in the difficult sense. I mean, there's a lot of work, right? I mean, I've spent over 20 years refining a craft, and I believe deeply in mastering your trade, but it hasn't felt hard. You know, it hasn't felt like, this is what I'm doing right now, because I think I should be. It's felt more like this is what I'm meant to do. And so let me get better at it. And so I think, you know, as an entrepreneur, if you're doing the work you're meant to do in the world, it doesn't feel like work. I mean, I could stay up until 4 a.m, you know, plotting around women's empowerment, you know, because I love my work. And so that's been the good of it. And certainly, you know, I'm a mom like you.
Yes.
And there's something to be said for just building a life that you want, building a lifestyle and working towards creating a body of work, a legacy, and on your own terms. And so I've always been entrepreneurial. I mean, I was the kid with the lemonade stand, you know, when I was 10 years old. So that's in my blood. So that piece of it is really great. And then what is challenging is that it pushes every single edge that you have, you know, and for some people it's visibility. For me, it's really coming out of the clouds. I mean, I'm a visionary thinker. I'm a big picture, right brain person. I love mind maps and pictures. You know, I love ideas. And so to come down to the ground and build something concrete that's scalable, that isn't a job, right? That is what I intended it to be in the first place. That's been the edge for me that's been pushed as an entrepreneur, but ultimately I'm better for it. And I've figured out, you know, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, and how to not allow my pride or stubbornness prevent me from being around people who are just better at certain things than I am, and bringing them into my life and into my circle.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's 2 points that I wanted to touch on there, Wokie. The one is actually that you're following your calling, and that's really, really evident in having worked with you personally, is that you really are doing what you love, that it doesn't actually feel like work. So you mentioned a little bit before we started the interviews that you actually had started initially even thinking about that back at university, where you worked on one of your papers around this particular topic. So it's obviously been something that's been in the back of your mind, or been something that you've been interested and passionate about, you know, from way back when. But how did you how did you hone that into creating a business and creating your coaching business around that specific purpose? Because I really think that's, you know, for quiet women, if they can find something that really fulfills them, that's their calling, that they can create a business out of, it really doesn't feel like any effort whatsoever. So can you guide us through a few of those steps of how you kind of identified that?
Yeah. So what I was sharing with you, I think where I have evolved in my business, because it's very easy to get caught up in your head and say, this should be my niche, and this is what I should, you know, these are the exact people, and to be very narrow, which can sometimes be very helpful, especially in the beginning, but it can also feel very limiting. And I felt like I was putting a lot of effort into defining what I do and what people should do with what I do once we do it, you know? And for me, I've realized that my mission is really to help women reclaim power, help women do the work they want to do in the world, so that there is, you know, a more equitable distribution of wealth, more equitable distribution of leadership opportunities for women. And that for me is what it comes down to. And my method, what I can offer to that struggle, is helping women get more comfortable being seen and heard. That is my work in that struggle. Someone else might be a financial planner or do money work or anything else that's needed along that pathway. I figured out what that is for me. And what I was mentioning to you is that when I was in college, I actually designed a major that looked at women and the impact politically, socioeconomically on women who are oppressed. And oppression for women can mean many different things depending on where you are in the world. But at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, that's what I was interested in. That's what fascinated me. So, and frankly, I forgot about that for a very long time. It was back there, but I wasn't connecting the dots along the way. And then I woke up one day and I'm like, this is my mission. And then I realized, it's always been my mission. And so that clarity, right, it helps you just hone your vision so that you can move in the right direction and offer the right things to your clients. And it's very freeing. So for me, I love talking about, money and selling and asking for what you want and negotiating. And there was a long time I felt like, well, that's not exactly what my thing is. But then now I realize it is, because it speaks to the way that I want to impact power for women. And so I can help them find their voice in those difficult conversations around finances, for example. And so I think, to answer your question, I think that you've got to be very open to what's coming to you. And at the same time, you have to be very, very smart about understanding that if you're in business, you're selling something. And it has to be something that the market actually needs and wants. And one of the things I love about Quiet Women is that we tend to be very observant, right? I mean, we're always observing and don't want to be observed, but we notice. And so use that. I mean, that's actually a very powerful skill to have, to really be able to see what's happening around you, to notice what people really need. And then think about yourself. What are you truly good at doing? What do you enjoy? Because I can guarantee, and I'll just speak to coaches out there, when you're coaching, if this person is your perfect client. And by perfect, I don't mean they paid you when you needed to get paid, right? I mean that the conversations with them feel uplifting. They inform your work. They inspire you. And when you're talking to a client that doesn't make you feel that way. And we can get very desperate about who we work with and making the money and hitting the numbers.
That's right.
And that's fine. That's something we have to do. But if you're trying to truly evolve towards what you're supposed to be doing and who you're supposed to be working with, you have to listen to those cues. And Quiet Women are also very intuitive. And so we know, I mean, if we had a room full of the women listening to this right now and asked each one, who's the person that you worked with and felt like, if there were 100 more of you, I would leave a legacy that will never be forgotten in my work. I mean, everyone would probably say, either they'd say, I know exactly who that is, or I haven't had that client yet. You know what I mean? And so you follow that. And one of the things I said, and when I was working with you, you were one of those people, I'm like, every woman that I work with could be in a room together and have a great time. Do you know what I mean? Like every woman that I've worked with is a woman I would love to come to my home and sit around the kitchen, hang out, and talk, and get to know them more. And I started following that. And then that's one of my tests. Is this a person I'd want to invite over to chat and hang out? And so the working relationship is beautiful, but also it allows me to go deeper, and there's a comfort level that we have with each other that allows us to have conversations quickly around things that maybe that woman wouldn't feel comfortable revealing anywhere else. But that's because I'm feeling for that connection, because that's how I want to work with people.
Oh, I love that. That is just such great advice, Wokie. I think that's incredible. I mean, connection is just so important in business, because that's the thing that fulfills you. I really think that's brilliant. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is that you mentioned the challenges, that you are a visionary thinker and that you kind of big picture, and that's certainly one of the challenges that you've had to overcome as being an entrepreneur. So can you share with us kind of a specific story where you actually realized that actually this was something that was getting in your way?
Oh, I realize it all the time. I mean, I realize it when I'm working and then I'm like, oh, Facebook, I'm going to go and see what everyone else is doing. You know, when things are just not getting done,
Yeah.
you've got to ask yourself, why are those things not getting done?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that you don't have the tools that you need or the support that you need, or maybe you just hate it. You know, maybe you just don't like that thing. And for me, I realized some of it is discipline. It's just saying, this is going to be painful and I'm going to spend 30 minutes doing this painful thing. But then there are other times when I'm like, this is something that's stopping me in my business from moving forward.
Right.
For me, a huge hurdle has been technology. And the more that I've found resources that were built for somebody that thinks the way I do, the more I can make progress. And I found that if I had a great idea, I would start thinking, how would that actually come into existence? There isn't a technology. I don't know how to do it. And that became, the reason not to do something that I wanted to work on. And so I have to figure out how to outsource that, or how to bring in somebody who is better at that, somebody that allows me to stay in my strength, which is, the possibility, the idea, and not feel like I have to, put a lid on my thinking because I don't know how to get from point A to point B. And so that's been huge for me, is just saying, I'm feeling that thing where I'm feeling a little stuck, and why? And if it's that there's something that I'm just not great at doing, then I've got to figure out who is great at doing this and ask for help.
Fantastic. And that's kind of how you've overcome those challenges now in your business, is that you...
Oh, yeah. I ask for help I love asking. That was another little test I did of myself, because I've spent a lot of time being very stoic and, strong. So, I'm going to figure this out and pull myself up on my bootstraps. Now I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Can you help, please? And people do, because, when people are in their zone of genius, they love it. I mean, if somebody said to me, I'm afraid to say this, I'm like, oh, this is how you say it. I mean, I light up because this is what I love. Yeah. And somebody gets very excited about accounting and about technology and about all the other things that might be standing in somebody's way. So find that person.
Love it. That's great advice. That's awesome. So now moving on, I wanted to find out, with having worked with so many women and really helping quiet women find their voices, has there ever been a specific moment in time where you've really had that aha light bulb moment? It's like, oh yes, I'm doing what I'm born to be doing. Now, we've spoken about you, finding your calling, but is there like a specific moment in time, again, Wokie, that you can share, that you can remember that particular feeling?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a one moment in time, but there's a moment in time with each client that it's almost like a light, shines, and you're like, yes, like this is what it's supposed to be. And I can't really explain what happens, but there's a defining moment when a woman lets her block go. And it might be subtle, it might be huge, but it happens. And every time that happens, I feel like, what's the movie where a star twinkles in the heavens for you? I'm like, okay, I'm doing my thing, universe. Just like you said I should. I feel like, when you can create that kind of transformation for somebody, it's so fulfilling. And it's fuel to keep doing it more and more and more. And it doesn't look like somebody says, oh, my blocks are gone. It's not that. I had a client recently who was very afraid of public speaking. And the first time she went up and spoke, and she wasn't speaking on stages, she was speaking more in the corporate environment. She was terrified. I was, texting her before, like, you've got this, go. And the last time she did she almost didn't mention it. She's like, oh yeah, I've got to go do this thing. And I said to her, wait a second, do you realize that now speaking for you is an aside? It's just something that you do. And she stopped and she's like, it is. And that was one of those moments when I was like, well, this huge fear you have is something you don't even notice doing anymore. And now it's, for her, the sky is the limit, because when you overcome your greatest fear, it changes everything for you. And I have that personal experience, not even as much around this issue, but I learned how to swim when I was 30 years old, and I was terrified of water. I mean, I at that point, I don't think I'd ever fully submerged my head in water because I was afraid of it. And I learned how to swim. I jumped into 12 feet of water. And the first time I jumped in, I came out and I was crying. I mean, I had tears coming down my face. And my instructor was smart enough to say to me, just do it again right now. I got out, I jumped in again, and I floated to the top. And I didn't even believe in buoyancy. I was like, I'm going to drown like a rock. There's no way. But it was a moment of transformation for me, that I realized that when you leap, the fear is bigger than the thing that you're afraid of most of the time. And it just helped me approach my life differently, approach taking risks differently. And so if I can provide that for women, and they do something that they're afraid to do, and they survive it, and they realize like, oh, I'm capable of more than I thought. It happens each time, each time is the point of reaffirming that this is what I should be doing.
That's incredible, and that's what you said. That's why I actually asked for those specific moments, because I think it's those moments in time, like you said, Wokies, that really fuel you to carry on doing what you're doing and making such a difference. Because it does. It kind of it just gives you that momentum to carry on, knowing that you're making such a difference. So I love that.
Yeah.
So now I know you're on kind of moving into some exciting things in 2015. So what are you most excited about in your life and business in 2015?
Yeah, I am excited about changing the way that I'm working, because, I have been working mostly one-on-one model of coaching and doing workshops and things like that for years and years and years. And that's worked for me. But I realized that there are a lot of things about, having a business and being online that I don't like in email marketing and blogging. Like, that's just not for me. I like to talk, and I like to talk to people. I like to look them in the face, and I like to know who they are and hear their voices. And so I, this year, decided that I'm coming out of isolation. I'm coming out of working in that way and launching a community called The Courage to Be Seen and Heard. And my vision is huge. That it will be a community of women from around the world who support each other in really embracing visibility and their voices in all areas of their life, and particularly in their work. And so that is coming along. And I'm also writing a book, and this has been in the works for a while. And my book is really talking about what it takes to transform yourself, and to redefine your relationship to your voice and to your presence. And so that's exciting. It doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels like, what am I doing? But I know that that's what's next for me. And I'm really just going into a lot of different directions and thinking about the applications of communication, the applications, like, what does a woman do once she has reclaimed her voice in order to really become more powerful in her life overall? And so we're working on different products and things along those lines. And so this is hugely different. But as I told you before we got on this call, I asked myself this year, if you could just build anything you wanted to, what would it be? And these are the things that came to me. And so I said, so what's the reason you're not doing it? And there isn't. And so here I go.
That's incredible. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see all of it come to life, because I know what a massive impact you're going to have on that community. It's just going to be incredible. So
Thank you.
I can't wait to share it. So I'd like to now dive into our lightning round. We're kind of wrapping up, and there's a few kind of short questions that I've got for you that I think will help our quiet women entrepreneurs. And the first one is, what is your favorite business quote and why?
Now, you know, it's really late here. I'm like, I was all ready and now I can't remember. I don't know if it's a business quote, meaning that it's meant to be a business quote, but, and I'm just going to pull it up so I say it correctly.
Yeah.
My favorite business quote is actually a quote by Anais Nin, which is that life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And I've had that up as my Facebook cover for, it's got to be 2 years now.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that. And so that is something that I bring into business every day, because if you cannot muster up the courage to do almost everything, right, that you need to do in business, I think it's a lot harder to make your dreams come true and to reach your goals. And so I always think about that expansion and that it takes courage.
100% agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I love that quote. That's fantastic, Wokie. Now, another one is, who are you most inspired by? Which woman are you most inspired by, and why?
You know, this is really, this has recently come up. And then when I saw your question, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I have been really fascinated, always, but especially lately, by Harriet Tubman. And I've recently been reading more and more about the Underground Railroad and the way that this tiny woman escaped slavery and then traveled for years back through all kinds of risks and adversity to free other slaves. And I think that, you know, I mean, there's so many reasons that that's amazing. But when I think about what that means and the application of it for women, you know, doing work in the world to bring about real change, you know, I look at her life and I think, you know, it takes courage. It takes immense personal sacrifice. It takes incredible cooperation and collaboration and community. And you know, certainly that's not the work that I'm doing. I mean, you know, we're thankfully not in that situation anymore, at least in this part of the world. And that's probably very questionable, actually. But I think about, you know, if we are really to work together as women to bring about change, those are the types of role models, I think, that we need to look to, you know, and to be, you know, women who are willing to really immerse themselves in a mission, to sacrifice for that mission and to bring others along with them, no matter what. And if we as women can do that for each other, I think it would be an incredible change. So, you know, of course, I've known about Harriet Tubman for most of my life, but as I'm moving through my own work and life and looking at women and what, you know, incredible work women have done throughout history, she has popped up recently for me over and over again.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, I love that. So I'll certainly be referencing her in our show notes. Thanks, Wokie. I need to do some research on that. So that's awesome. So my last question to wrap up is, what do you think is the most significant barrier to female entrepreneurship today, and why?
Oh, I know what it is. I mean, you know, for my book, I've interviewed a massive amount of women, you know, it's not some, you know, university study where I have 50,000 people, but so, you know, over 100 women. I've had the same conversation. And I think the biggest barrier is their comfort in being seen and heard. I mean, that hands down. Because I think as an entrepreneur, especially if you are the product, if you're a coach or any kind of service provider where you're the brand, people have to see you, and you have to be comfortable sharing your message with the world, sharing your work with the world, promoting yourself, being front and center in your business. And if you can't do that, no matter what mechanism that is, if that means social media or video or networking, people aren't going to know about you. And you have to be seen in order to grow in this space. And so that's what I believe it is, for sure.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. I think that too. And that's why we are here, Wokie.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, that's been incredible, Wokie. Thank you so much. I'd love for my beautiful ladies to be able to find you online. So where can they find you online? And I'll be sure to share all the links in our show notes today.
Yeah, they can find me on my website, which is wokienwabueze.com. And in a few weeks, you'll be able to find me in the Courage to be Seen and Heard community. That's where I'll be hanging out and creating and really holding space for women who are ready to step out of hiding. And so I would love to, just, first of all, I love what you're doing. I think I've said that to you about 1,000 times, but I think the more we create space for women to find the comfort to, number one, stand up and say, I am in hiding, right? And then to come out in a way that feels energizing, uplifting, safe for them, I think will make a huge difference in the world. And so, yes, let's keep the mission going.
Oh, Wokie, you have been absolutely incredible. I'm honored to have had you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Soon.
Yes. All right, Casey.
Thank you so much, Wokie. That was awesome. Thank you so much.